Metabolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Prophecy Code Lifestyle Edition. You have Coach Danika here and the beautiful Coach Christina.
Oh, how nice.
Just
I love you.
just us today, a little bit of girl talk, a lot of bit of thinking and thoughts that we're probably going to spew out at you, but we will always wrap it up in a nice little bow.
Or we will do our damnedest for it.
We will do our damn best.
Exactly. Yay for Danika's first intro on a podcast. I love it. Yeah, so today we're gonna dive into a topic so Danika sent over, it was like 6 or 7 topics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had one in mind, but then this one was on her list and it jumped at me because I feel like it's something adults of all ages need to work on. It's something I'm constantly talking to my children about. And it's one of the things that I thank the Navy like the most for in teaching me. So we are going to talk today about the power of boredom and diving and leaning into that and not trying to shy away from it. So Danika started to kind of go into like where this idea came from. And then I was like, wait, let's record. So why don't you go ahead and kind of hop back into, where your head was going with this?
Yeah, I feel that we've talked about this. Today's society is just like overstimulated times 100, right? There's always new, shiny, entertaining. There's just a lot of new, shiny things. And you could say that in so many different ways. Like I think social media plays a huge role, but even if you were to just walk in the grocery store, like there's a lot of new shiny things there, right? Or walk into like a convenience shop, like there's just new things everywhere. And that's a wonderful thing. How amazing that we have that opportunity to have all those things. But I think it kind of fucks around with our dopamine. And I think that we are always looking for new things. Like we're always like, this isn't good enough. Let me do something else. Or I need to like always be changing, always be doing something new to get the energy. Like I feel that we often don't even give what we already have enough time to settle into it, to appreciate the benefits of what we're already doing and what we already have around us. And that is perceived as being bored, right? Because like, oh, this is boring. Like I'm doing the same thing. And when I was thinking about it, I was thinking more specifically when I brought it up about training. And you had said like this could go in so many different aspects of life, but I have clients that have said, well, I've been on the program for 3 weeks now. Can we change it up? And no.
Right.
Like I've been on my program for a decade now. And like, there aren't too many things that I'm going to change up because a shoulder press, like a dumbbell shoulder press is pretty fucking awesome. And I've realized that like, that doesn't need to change. Like I can change small things within it, maybe. And I could change tempo. I could change weight load. I could change maybe a slight angle. I could change from standing to sitting or sitting to standing. But there's beauty that like needs to be kind of seen in just the simplicity of things sometimes, and not always having to change it up, and realizing that we sometimes just need to be bored, and that's okay. Like that actually brings consistency to something, and consistency usually brings even better results than constantly changing.
Yeah. And I feel like I have so many different things I want to say about all of it because this is something I get the same stuff where I'll work with a lot of people where after like even like a week or two, they'll be like, okay, so I'm going to get a new program, right? And I'm like, oh, no. Do you even understand it? Like, are you sure you're at a good place with like working sets, right? I talked to somebody yesterday who had asked me if she could remove the warm-up sets from the one of the our like downloadable programs with the challenge, and she needs to save time. And so where she had looked at it was she thought there was too much volume on some of the compound sets, and so she wanted to pull the warm-up ones and not do them. And I was like, oh no, like hopefully you're doing a high enough weight where like you very much need those to get you to where you need to be. And just two warm-up sets, I was like, it could take me like 20 minutes to get into my working sets sometimes on stuff. And so we need to keep that kind of stuff in. And like I can get it with training plans where I told her I've realized over the years I need them to be shorter to like hold my attention span. I don't want to do a million things. I would much rather have like a shorter list of stuff
Yeah.
that I'm working really hard on. But like the number one game changer for me over the years has been just falling in love with certain exercises. And those are basically all I do. Like, and I remember, so Elizabeth, who helped us with social media and
Yeah.
everything like a couple years ago, when she needed content, she'd be like, can you send me some gym stuff? And I was always either doing shoulder press, bench press, squat, or deadlift. And I would send her one of those, and she'd be like, yeah, cool. Do you have anything of you doing anything else? Because that's like all you do. And I was like, I mean, yeah, right. It is. Like, and the beauty of it comes in like how you switch up how you're chasing it, right? Like my exercises are pretty much always the same. You mentioned stuff like tempo and things like that, but you can completely change like a squat workout by saying, okay, today we're going to do 5 sets of 3, 1 rep left in the tank, or we're going to do, 3 sets of 20 with 1 rep
Right.
left in the tank. And like those two are going to kick your ass in two completely different ways. And that's one of the ways that you can shake it up if you've gotten to the point where you're just like death by volume and you're so sick of it. Go super, super heavy, where like 1 rep makes you a little nervous. And then somehow you do the second one, and then you're just doing the third one out of spite, and then you can move on with your day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree. I totally agree. And I think that maybe it's being okay with like what you're doing, but allowing yourself to get to that point where you're okay with what you're doing. I think people just immediately feel bored, or maybe it's like the feeling of like we should always change things, like we should always change this, shouldn't we change it? Being able to hold steady with that feeling and let it pass, like let that feeling exist, and then really reevaluate and say like, no, I don't need to change this, I can make small tweaks. Let's see what happens if I hold steady for another 3 weeks and I just make the small tweaks. Does that ignite a little bit more of a fire, if that's like what you need to feel, right? My husband and I have said this before with like um our home life even. It's very, there's not too much, I guess, like you could say it's pretty not boring. Like I don't even think it's boring.
Mhm.
It's very routine. There's very routine in it. And a vacation is wonderful, but because my home life is very routine, pretty good, like I'm very happy with what I'm at, a vacation is great, but I love coming back to what I have. It'd be the same as me doing like a hit style workout is fantastic. I really like my base. Like I really like being bored and being happy with my base too. That novelty is a beautiful thing, but you should find love in like what you already have and be okay with just maintenance too. Like maintenance in a healthy way.
Yeah. So when you think about it, right, like when we're talking about how somebody's body is going to respond to training. Like if we use that as an example, we'll talk about like, is somebody an experienced or trained lifter? Or like, are they a novice? Have they never done this kind of stuff before? Are they intermediate? Like, where are they at, right? Because the more we know about the amount of time that they have spent on a weightlifting routine consistently, the more we can gauge how they're going to respond. And the thing about that and racking up that time is there's a very, like I've talked about this before, there's a huge difference between exercising and training. And one is going to keep you healthy. It might be more than enough to keep you at the physique you want. You might be good with being able to just go to the classes and go do the stuff that challenges you a little bit, but feels good for the most part. That could be more than enough. If you are somebody who's trying to push it further, and maybe, or especially if you've been doing this for a long time, then that means it's going to be harder and harder to get your body to respond. It's also something that I've been reading a lot with like the research that they've done on women in perimenopause and menopausal, as we try to like add muscle or just keep from losing all of it, or if we're trying to keep our body fat percentage like stable, the number one thing we have to do is level up even more. Like you cannot dial back on your training. You have to continue to kick ass even more because your body is kind of dulled to the response. And so in all of that, like I like to think of it as pennies in the bank for deposits. And like you really have to earn that time. You have to put in, I forget that thing, was it like 10,000 hours or whatever? It's like a million hours. That makes you like an expert.
Yeah.
You want to look like a well-trained advanced lifter. You got to put the time in.
Right.
And that means like years and years of doing the same shit and just doing it really well. And I
Yeah.
mean, I've been working very hard on squat, bench, and deadlift for, I mean, really hard and focused for at least the last 10 years. But like before that, I was doing them, just not with a good plan. And I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Like I've yet to hit a plateau where I'm like, this is all I can do with my life, you know?
Yeah.
And so but you do have to get excited about that process. And then it's not mundane anymore. Like that exercise can still really scare me at like certain numbers and stuff and, shake it up there. So I think it's about getting excited about the fact that every day that you do that and you keep moving forward with that like mundane activity, that's one more day that you get to add to like the experience level of it, and where you're going to start to reap the rewards. Like one of the things I'll have people look at like masters athletes and point out like the difference between an athlete who is like 20 and then an athlete who's competing 45 plus. And
Yeah.
you look at their muscle density, you look at their structure, like just everything.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, okay, that's what happens when you keep doing what she's been doing for like a year or two. If you do that for 20 years, that's what it looks like.
Right. Right. I think people don't realize that sometimes. They think that it's just because I've even had people say, well, I want shoulders just like yours. And I've been like, I'm not doing anything special. Like I've just done it. The duration of time I've been doing it is a long. So like I am just doing your basic front raises, lateral raises, shoulder press, rear delts. Like I'm not doing anything wild. It's me doing it consecutively over the course of many, 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 many years. And that's sometimes that feels like a blow. Like they're like, what? Like, yeah, like, but that's okay. How exciting is that? That you get to like really master those movements. And then you, like you said, like every time you go, it's like one day that you got back in there. Like you're getting that much closer to it. And you will see changes start to happen when you're able to reflect. Like, I think it's awesome to also be able to do something like the same or similar routine over and over again and be able to say, like, when I first started, I was like this. And then a year from now, like when I put those comparison pictures, wow, like,
Yeah.
and I was just doing, like, I was just consistent. That's the changes that can happen if I'm consistent over a year. Imagine if I did this for another whole year, what would come up?
Yeah. And doing things like keeping logbooks of your exercises and then having videos too,
Yeah.
if you can, so that you can watch yourself doing like a
Mhm.
shoulder press at like I was talking to a client who said that she started doing hers at 10 and she was like, but I think I can move to 12.5. What do you think? And I was like, hell yes, girlfriend. Go to 15. Like I know you can do it. And I was like, take a video and just go to failure and let's see how many you can get and let's see what the reps look like. And then can you imagine like a year from now when she's going to be pressing like at least 25s and
Right.
like looking all strong and confident. And so, but that kind of stuff takes time. I had somebody else who has been checking in with me for, I think it's either 2 or 3 weeks. She's down about a pound and a half, a pound in this
Mhm.
last week. And she had like an inch and a half come off of her waist. So I think we had a good amount of like just water flushing and like stuff like that.
Yep.
She had asked me, like, when am I going to see it in the mirror? Because I feel like for the work I'm doing, this isn't fair. And I get it, right?
Yeah.
But, and like on our end, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, well, look at this rate of loss. Like, this is exciting. And like, I think everything's so great. But then I can get where if she's looking in the mirror, like, she's not seeing a change at all, right?
Right.
Like, give it a couple of weeks. And then, like, especially when we're looking at ourselves, if we're looking
Mhm.
at our life, our routine, ourselves in the mirror, whatever it is, it's going to seem like stuff is going super slow. This is why this is the power of tracking for me. I literally track like everything in my life, like, and pretty extensively. I'm like our money person for the family, and considering that my husband is like in finance and makes really fancy spreadsheets like for a living, you should see my sad little spreadsheet because it's just like five little columns and then I copy and paste it and I just change the date. But it goes back like 2.5 years now. And I can
Amazing.
see like all of these individual bills, where our savings was at, like all of like the rates of change and stuff. And like I love that. And I'm somebody who I like have raging ADHD. Definitely like the dopamine thing, like seeking that out is something that I struggle with. And then for me, I get like hyperfixations. And then so the really bad, like the thing for me is that when I'm done with a hyperfixation, I'm fucking over it. I don't care anymore. And so with like a lot of that stuff, you can't just do that. And fitness is one of them, right? And so that's why for me, I found the things I really enjoy doing, and then I just kick the can down the road in a different way each time. And so for like with running for me, that one, I'm like, let's see how far I can go with stuff. That excites me. I just want to keep racking up the amount of time on feet and what I'm capable of. Lifting, on the other hand, I don't need to be the strongest Christina in the whole world. I would kind of love to do that. It also hurts, especially because I like to try and run for as long
Right.
as I can. And so you have to like find a balance there with stuff. But what I've figured out is that I also have to be pretty dang careful with like the exercises that I do, the ranges I stay in. I really have to pay attention to how stuff feels because
Yeah.
it can take one bad squat with enough weight on my back where if I just shift into my right hip half a centimeter, just a
Yeah.
tiny bit, oh, my hip is done for and it's going to hurt for the next 6 months. And so with stuff like that, then it becomes okay, well, how can I keep my hip from hurting? Well, I notice on this side, I push that like hip back a little bit and I need to engage my core better, make sure I have my breath in line with when I'm going to be moving. And there's like all these like little nuances. And so that pulls me back to talking about being like well trained and becoming experienced and becoming advanced and knowledgeable and like everything is it's when you get to that place where you're looking at like the nuances of stuff that's when like we're probably not seeing a ton of change anymore. And so if you like it's happening slowly over time and like things like that, we're not seeing the rapid thing. And so if you're not there where you're having to completely nerd out on every little bit to keep moving stuff forward, then you're in the exciting part beforehand where
Yeah.
if we just dial in and just keep fucking going, like it is happening. Look back a year and see where you were, compare stuff. I look back on like my fitness pal a year ago. This goes back
Mhm.
to me tracking everything. I've got fucking everything. I can look back and see where I was averaging with stuff and be like, okay, how do I feel about where I'm at now? And then I'll pick on like one little thing at a time that I want to try and level up.
Yeah. This could, like the feeling of being bored too, could even go into food to some extent because I've even had like talking like mom life. I've had some of my friends being like, what do you cook for your kids? Like, what are you making for dinner tonight? I need new ideas. And like, I don't have new ideas. Like, I rotate stuff all the time because I know what my grocery bill will be. I know what groceries I need, how long it will take me at the store, what my grocery bill will be like, how long it takes me to cook it, who is going to be fed, what nutrients are in there. Like it is on repeat with variation. So like say I know we're going to make fish tacos, maybe one time I chop up cucumbers and put it into the fish taco sauce, or maybe one time I use cod, the next time I use tilapia, the next time I use shrimp. Like I don't really have too much variation because it works. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's boring. It means that it works really well and there's a great flow. I would have never known that if I didn't constantly repeat. Maybe some people have more of a culinary taste than I do, and like that's your journey, and that's not mine. It's just not where that's not my path. Maybe I need to develop it, but I think it's okay. Like I think it's okay to like have some things that are on repeat and be able to make those subtle changes. The reason why I can make those subtle changes to recipes is because I have done them, because I have done them on repeat. And the reason why you are able to make those subtle nuanced changes for yourself is because you've done it on repeat you've squatted for an extended period of time. The only reason why you found that out is doing it over and over again, right?
Right.
And messing up maybe a little bit, but then coming back to it, not saying like, yeah, you're right, it's time for something new. Like, no, you just stuck to your base and then changed accordingly to have it benefit you or push you to another um excitement. And that doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. I also you made a really good point too. And you're right, during that like time that our estrogen is going down and our body is not as it's not going to adapt as well to like the same things that we have been doing as women. It is important to challenge ourselves, right? But that also doesn't mean completely stripping yourself away from the base that you've developed. It means that maybe you need to develop supersets, or maybe you need to push the weight load a little bit more, right? Like maybe that's your time that you take that. We've talked about dials so often, but maybe you just turn up the dial on the base that you already have.
Yeah. I saw
Yeah.
something today where I think they were talking about parenting, but they talked about like a thermostat. And I think that's kind of a nice way to think about it too,
Yeah.
is that like most people have a happy number on their thermostat. And maybe you and your spouse have different numbers. And so now that's your range of
Yeah.
happiness where you guys can like argue for the sake of that range, right? And
Yeah.
then like you kind of want to have the same thing where you operate within this boring range. But I mean, so like going back to what you said about vacations, it's fun
Mm.
because I am somebody who loves the idea of travel. I love when I get somewhere. I love the excitement of checking in and like all of that kind of stuff. And then from there, I'm usually pretty ready to go home. Like, I like sleeping in my bed. I
Yeah.
really hate hotel pillows. I don't want to hear weird sounds. Like, there's like all sorts of stuff where like I'm like, this would be nicer if I could sleep in my bed for the sleeping part and then wake up like here.
Uh-huh.
And I'm always eager to get back to it. And I think that is because we are just have become the kind of people who curate our day-to-day life to be as close to exactly the way we want it.
Mm.
And what's funny is like it doesn't feel like it takes that much work anymore, but it also does take a lot of work, right? For you
Yeah.
and I to have
Yeah.
that, like the house at the right temperature.
Yeah.
And like there are a lot of things that we do consistently, but if you just do them consistent, you don't just start to notice it anymore. Like I just always
Yeah.
make myself a coffee and have a protein shake for our podcast. And then like, and it just gets, I also always end up complete. Oh, it just like exploded. Sorry, my water exploded. I always end up like dry mouthed by the end of our podcasts. And so I know it's a good opportunity for me to keep a like newly filled water bottle next to
Yeah.
me because I'm going to pound it. And
Yeah.
then by the end of my hour and a half, 2 hours of work, I know I will have just not even thought about the fact that I knocked out 30 grams of protein and 30 ounces of water.
Right.
And it's that kind of like getting to a place where it's mindless. I don't really have to think about it anymore because it's
Right.
just part of my routine that I grab all that stuff before I sit down to my computer. And so the other thing you brought up, food, where you were like, I guess that's not really a boredom thing. Okay, so it's not for us. It is for a lot of people. Like
Yeah.
eating routine foods where they're just like, I cannot eat the same meals for a week. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
then that's a skill we should work on because, and like, so my thing, I talk a lot about icon meals. They are my ride or die homie. I have at least one. Actually, lately I have really been turned off by meat. Like I said, I'll get to a place and then all of a sudden something will be
Mm.
like, nope, can't do it. Lately it's been meat for me. But normally I have at least one icon meal every single day. There'll be some days I'll have two, lunch and dinner. And oh, man, I blew myself off with talking about meat. I like lost my train of thought completely. Do you hate when that happens?
Well, no, being able to
Oh,
have like a routine and not be bored, or you
yeah,
think it's boring eating the same thing, but people need to work on being bored
right.
in your food.
And then again, going back to the expert thing and like the learning and stuff like that. So my icon meals, I can jazz up the super boring ones to be like five different things. Like
Right?
the ones that are just chicken, rice, and green beans. Oh, I can
So
do
much that you could
things
do with
that.
that.
Yeah. I love like the Mexican flavored or like inspired
Yeah.
ones because it can be by itself. It can go in a tortilla. It can go on top of a salad. Like I can do
Yeah.
a million different things with it and it's one meal. And so for me, and now I know how they digest. I know how they affect
Right.
my day. It's just really fucking convenient. And it
Yeah.
makes my day easier if I go out of the way to order those and then bring them with me
Yeah.
places and stuff where it sounds like it's more difficult, but really it takes so much off of my mind. And so it goes back to wanting to learn to be better at making that something that you're excited to eat multiple days a
Yeah.
week or putting in the work to figure it out. Because the thing is that in the end, changing your routine constantly or just avoiding it and just not doing it are not going to get you where you want to be.
Right.
Like we talk to so many people that do the shifting stuff with like plans all of the time, especially with like the diets with the names and everything where they're so weird and like they're going to cause a weird reaction to your body, you know?
Yeah.
Like if we're going from like, well, I was vegan for a while and then I went keto and then I was carnivore and then, and we're like bouncing around.
Now I don't understand why I can't poop. I
Yeah. And I'm like, man, do you poop? How often? Um, like, and so like, but it's trying to find that thing that works. And it really just boils down to finding out the perfect balance of your favorite foods and the exercise you don't mind doing
yeah.
routinely and just doing it for frickin' ever.
Yeah. I do think so like I can see people also so the six basic human needs, one of the needs is variety. And variety is really important. I do think that variety of things is very important, but it also I think that it's important to know how much variety is absolutely necessary in one's life to not completely mess up the excitement of new things.
Yeah.
So it should be like, for instance, it's adventures are fun, right? Like taking adventures are fun. If every single weekend I went on vacation, it wouldn't be that fun. Like it wouldn't be exciting. It wouldn't be like, I don't know, like having, if every single night for my kids, for example, I can even see it in their brain. So not even an adult brain, but a child brain still developing, still figuring out who am I in this world that we exist in. If I had them watch TV and a movie every single night at dinner time, it would just be routine and like it wouldn't be that exciting. But when Saturday comes and it's a weekend night and I say, girls, dinner and a movie night, they're like, oh, mom, like
Yeah.
that means that like those are special things that add variety to life, but don't extinguish the excitement too. Like that is really important. So like when you are kind of in a rhythm of your food and like you continuously do the thing, you become a master at your food. And then you go out to a random Thai food restaurant and you get something new. That's exciting. Like it's exciting, right? So I don't want to completely dismiss variety, but I do think that nowadays people they like a vacation should be
Special.
exciting to do,
Yeah.
right? Like a new workout should be exciting to do instead of being like, oh, it's Monday. I'm going to do a new workout now because every time I do a new workout and like I don't even have a good base. I think that we miss out on that because there's so much newness and we don't get bored. Another thing though, cognitively, we should like, it's pretty sad if we're not able to like sit with our own thoughts. And like, that is a pretty sad thing that's coming to like existence in society where we don't know what to do. Like at a quiet dinner table, without the phones, without the tablets, without the television, to sit across from somebody and have a conversation. Like that's, if you feel uncomfortable doing that, maybe it's a social thing. Like maybe I can go there with you. But for the most part, I think we just get uncomfortable that we don't have like immediate, like something like immediate.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'd say like, being able to sit in a waiting room, like without your,
Yeah.
and have to just sit there. The kids will bring it up all the time where so on Tuesdays, Ben is done with karate at 5 and Cora is done with her flight class at 5:30. And so it takes us about 10-15 minutes to drive from one place to the next. And then we have to sit for a while before we get Cora. And Ben is 5 and he'll get frustrated. And sometimes I will plan ahead and I'll bring his iPad because I don't want to.
Mhm.
But the other times he'll be like, can I have my phone? And I will say in these situations, I will make sure I'm not being a hypocrite. So if I tell him, no, you have to look out your window and like entertain yourself, I'm not going to say it while I'm looking at my phone and like
Right,
tell
right,
him no. Yeah.
right.
And so, but and I'm like, I'm constantly telling them, you need to learn how to be bored and be able to just
Yeah.
entertain yourself. And so I had something like this happen to me twice in the last year where I thought it was like pretty monumental with like it shifted how I thought about it with workouts, right? So there are a lot of runners out there who don't run with music. And there are like races where you're not allowed to have headphones. There's a lot of elite runners who purposely don't run with music because they want to listen to everything. I am not one of those people. I want the distraction. I want the uplift, like all of that. And so over the summer, there was one day where I think I just had too many apps running on my phone. It was like the first day I had, or no, I didn't have my GPS because I got lost. So I went out on a like 20-mile long run on a mountain and lost service almost immediately. And then my phone died while I was out there. So I would have to like stop hikers and be like, hi, can you help direct me? And the worst part is, Do you think I was paying attention to like any of the path I was on? No, I didn't know the name of anything. So I'm just like, I don't know. And then it did this and like trying to explain to people.
No.
But I had to run for 2.5 hours with nothing, with just
Yeah.
the sound of my feet and my
Mm.
breath and the birds. And at first I was like, I'm gonna die. Like I'm literally going to somehow talk in
Hmm.
my head in circles enough until I die. But then it turned out to actually be super nice where like I found I think an even better like version or like higher version or something of like the moving meditation of running, where when you have music, you can adapt to like the beat and kind of
Yeah.
go with that. But
Yep.
this was something where it was just my feet, it was just my breath. And
Yeah.
then I would really just have times where all of a sudden I'd like look at my watch again and be like, oh shit, 2 miles just went by. And like it would feel like maybe 2 minutes went by. And I would just be so in that like flow and just going.
Right.
And then recently it happened at the gym where, and the worst part was it was just a shit morning. It was in a rush. Like the mornings kill me because it's just getting all four kids or three out of the four into the car for the whole day, right? Like we'd have everything. And then it's like really early. And it's like going crazy. So I was already frustrated with that morning. And then I get to the gym and I had to do like a 1 hour run and I had to do leg day. Like the way the workout was built for the week, I had to double up that day. And I look in my bag and I can't find my AirPods. And I'm like, they're on my desk. Like from the call I did yesterday, they're at home. And I like sat there on the treadmill for a good like 90 seconds pouting because I was like, well, do I go home? And like the whole week is fucked. Like, what do I do now? I can't do all of this. The worst part is it's this class. I think I've talked to you guys about it before. There is this workout class that goes on Tuesday
Uh,
and Thursday mornings, and I despise the instructor so much. And the worst part is it's because more often than not, he likes to choose to count to 10 in Spanish, but he does it with this like mocking accent that just makes him sound really dumb. And I just find it so irritating, this like one thing he does.
yeah.
And like, so I was like, I don't want to listen to him this whole time. And I did. I was like, let's just start and let's see if I can do 10 minutes of cardio.
Yeah.
And then I finished my 6 miles. And again, it was like weird how I would just kind of zone out and listen to my feet and then get to a place where I was fine. And then same thing with like the lift. I just zoned out a lot. And I maybe that's almost like what a skill, like something that people need more of is the ability to not watch the clock, to not like how fast can this get done? How fast can I be doing something else
Right.
and stuff like that, but really just leaning into it and just, for me, it goes back to grit. I feel like that's something I constantly want to work on and feel like I'm getting good at having, is like having grit in situations and like, God, what if I was in a situation where this is what I tell myself as a long distance runner. What if for some reason I had to go run 15 miles?
Right.
What if there was an emergency and somebody said, Christina, you got to do it right now. I know you don't have any of your stuff. You got to do it. And I want to be able to be like, I got you. And like, who knows? But just getting stronger with that stuff. And I feel like when I was younger, and I try to tell my kids, my older two, this a lot because they're getting to that age, especially as kids of like the iPads
Yeah.
on all of that. Like shit, our kids get everything they want, right? Because I grew up with poor. So and like because we're not, and I could say yes to stuff. I'm like, sure. My kids are
Yeah.
spoiled as shit. And so I'm constantly trying to, you know, institute that kind of stuff or like the earning, I want them to be hard workers and like not think that things are just going to be given to them and stuff like that. And a lot of it comes from them learning now how to sit in boredom or how to sit in redundancy
Right.
and like getting used to those things so that when they get older, it doesn't like shock them that they have to do that.
Right, right. I find it's such a valuable thing, especially for kids in maybe it wasn't as like I don't think it was needed as much. Like it wasn't needed as much because it was a skill that was just already activated when we were, at least when I was a kid, like it was just already there wasn't a tablet, there wasn't a phone, there wasn't
Right.
a streaming thing. Um, if you wanted to watch like Doug, you knew that it only came out at a certain time on a certain day. Like you needed,
And if you were in the bathroom, like, like yelling for
yes,
people to be like, it's on.
yes,
Like,
hurry up, I can't pause it. Like there
yeah,
was no pause rewind.
right.
So I feel like it's such a missed skill because even something as like my kids are actually with their Mima right now, but it's a 45-minute drive, which to me, I'm like, that's great. That's wonderful. But they always like Venna is at that age. She's 8. She's like, Mom, I'd really like a tablet. And I'm like, no, 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 why? Like, give me a good reason why. Because if it's like for school, I think that that's totally fine. And also, I realize like I don't want my kiddos to feel left out. Like I don't want that feeling to
Huh.
exist where they're like everyone else has something because it's not that we can't get it for them. So like I want her to have a really good purpose and I don't want it to be because I'm bored. And that is something that even yesterday I had to say, well, in a car, what could we do?
Hmm.
And Jada is like, we could play the alphabet game, or we could like, how about you don't get car sick? Like, and you out the window. Like, that's a great idea.
Right.
Into the music, or let's play like a music game, or I this also I said to them because the power almost went out and we had a huge storm and so the lights were flickering and they were like, what do we do? And I was like, how cool that like we would just be with us. Like that would mean you have to like talk to mommy. And like that's a really good skill to be able to practice like complete boredom without stimulation. And you had mentioned like you got into a flow state. I feel like that's what it means when like that's probably I don't meditate, but I would assume that's probably what it's like is to be able to be completely in like your own like it's just a really good space in your mind that doesn't have a lot of external stimulation where you can quiet everything around you so much so that you get this really deep connection with the sound of your breath. And that I think sometimes people don't tap into. And it's really, really valuable. Like you should be able to like quiet everything and hear your breath, right? Like, isn't that something that's probably important in life?
Yeah, but see, it very much does not come naturally to me, like meditation and stuff,
Me neither.
with just doing it. It's actually
Yeah.
this week, my goal, it's freaking Thursday. My goal was to meditate for 5 minutes 3 times. I've done zero. Okay. So I gotta get my shit together because I have to
Yeah.
do it today now. Um, and I'm not somebody where, so I've mentioned this before too, and it's probably super nerdy, but like, so the book Eat, Pray, Love,
Mm.
I found at just the right time. And this makes me feel so old to officially be like legitimately old enough to say this, right?
Well, I'm right there. I'm older than you, so.
Well, so it got given to me when I was like somewhere between 20 and 22, like
Mhm.
somewhere right around there. Which now I look back and like then I thought I was like an adult, you know? And
Yeah.
now I look back as somebody who's going to be 38 here soon. And I'm like, oh, that child, right? And like, I that book spoke to me a lot as she goes through like pain and then uses meditation and yoga and has to confront like feelings and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And very much has to, in her meditation, essentially like look at them and then like have a conversation
Right.
and make it go away. And there's like one point she talks about, there's something you've said that is similar. She talks about like ships coming in And that if they have like thoughts or ideas that like are not welcome, then it's just like, no, bye. And you
Yeah,
just let
yeah.
chips go. So I've always loved that book and I've always wanted to be somebody. She, in that one, does meditations for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
I would die. Well, first of all, I'd fall asleep is what would happen. I like A, how do you do that? B, I'd never last that long. Because I can't just sit there. My monkey brain goes crazy and it's all over the place. And
Right.
so for me, I think that's one of the reasons why running speaks to me so much with stuff
Yeah.
because it's exercise and I get like
Yeah.
the endorphins and like all of that from it. But also, I know that like on a 1 hour run, I'm gonna zone out from probably mile 3 to 5. And like it takes that long for me to get there. Up
Mhm.
until then, I'm watching every metric. I'm annoyed. I don't want to be doing this. And then that's when I'm warm. I hit my zone and
Yeah.
I can just cruise and enjoy the
Mhm.
music and then look down and be like, oh shit, we're almost done. And like it's nice. And
Yeah.
so, but it takes building that repetition for you to be able to get to the place where your brain's going to be comfortable shutting off with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think too that meditation is a lot of the times with my clients, like my mindset clients, if I had them do, had them do forms of meditation. So like non-sleep deep rest is a form of like being able to become more in tuned with your body, but it requires you to still do work. So if the monkey brain is very much there, the monkey has a task that it has to do. It
Right.
doesn't just get like shut up right away. You have to be able to say, it's like a guided thing of, I want you to feel your toes. What are your toes up against? I want you to wiggle your toes. Like you're actually given action
Right.
and then allowing yourself to have more tunneled focus, which helps you to regulate your nervous system and get into a state where you are able to access that calmness. Another thing that I would have them do is go outside. And I've talked about this before, but go outside and close your eyes and note 10 things that you can hear. So it, again, allows you to like dial in focus instead of being like, what's next? What's next? What's
Yeah.
next? Like you still have something that you have to do. And I think that that works better in the beginning with meditation instead of being like, none of my clients actually would, to include myself, would not be successful at this. If I was like, I want you to sit in a corner and breathe, they'd be like, the fuck I am. Like,
Yeah.
I
When it's
can't
like,
do that.
listen to your breath.
No, there's like
And I'm like,
no,
no, am I breathing really fast?
yeah, yeah. And like, especially if you know that you might be an anxious type, like you could go down rabbit holes of breath. Like, is that breath okay? That's probably not a good breath. Why did I
Right.
just double inhale? I should probably exhale longer. Like, how's my CO2 state? That's not good. This is not doing anything with my heart rate.
Happening.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize what form of meditation works well for you and what form of boredom works well, right? Like
Yeah.
boredom can be really exciting because it means that you probably are doing something so consistently that you get to become an expert in that. And that's pretty cool. Like, you know, your grocery bill. Like my husband, if I were to task him of, he'd be like, I could go pick up dinner. I'm like, you have no idea where things are. It takes me exactly 8 minutes to go pick up all the groceries that we need on a Wednesday.
You're
A
like, this
minute.
conversation, I already picked up 3 things. Like,
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So it's okay to have that mundane, if you want to call it. It gets such a bad reputation, but it's pretty freaking cool to be able to tap into that and allow your brain with all the external stuff that's constantly happening to sometimes also tap into the boredom of things. Like I have to challenge some of my clients, even with food. Like they'll be like, what do you mean be more mindful of my food? And I'm like, well, when was the last time that you sat down at the dinner table? You took 3 deep breaths, you looked at your food, you took a good bite, you chewed slowly, and then you like put your fork down after that bite. Like, or is it something completely different where like 500 other things are going on at the same time? And I'm guilty of this too. Like I have driven and eaten at the same time. Like I get it, but it's really important to get back to like those kind of things and realize there's great importance in that. Our bodies were not made to be like, go, 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 and then think that we're going to have great results from that. Like our
Right.
bodies are, no, they're constantly running away from tigers all the time.
Yeah.
But like, we don't need that. Like, our bodies don't need that, especially women, if they want to think about like what tends to happen as we get older. Our bodies are not going to be like, this sounds like a fun ride. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, oh, that statement right there could lead into like an entirely different part.
Oh, yeah. So we could go right into
I
another podcast.
I was about to dive into it, then I was like, you know what? No, we don't want to talk for another 45 minutes. Um, yeah, and so a different topic that we had thought about or that I had brought up doing was like, what would we say to our younger selves, or like what advice would we give? And it's funny because one of the ones I was thinking about for myself was like telling like you really need to learn how to chill out and like to actually chill out. And that doesn't mean to go from doing all of the things to doing none of the things, because when I was younger, that would be, I would either super overdo it and I'd have like multiple jobs and I'd be in school and I like all the things, and I'd be exercising, all that. And then I would go to nothing,
Yeah.
like not picking up shifts, not going to class, and not working. Like I would sloth mode. And then again. And I do think I talk, still to a lot of people who end up there. It's
Yeah.
not uncommon for me to still talk to somebody who says that like life has still not returned to normal since COVID. And like that with adjustments and things like that, there's still stuff. And so I think for me, a thing that was super helpful is learning how every day. And this is something just recently, I think, because as life changes, you have to relearn this skill. So,
Yeah.
as Christina, mama four with jobs and like all that, I have to be able to implement like 30-minute chunks of chill for myself throughout the day for me to not go batshit crazy. Like for me to be fun mom. Like if I don't want to be just like frustrated and walking the edge where they're like, I'm going to be mad about everything. Like
Yeah.
it has become huge and like reading. I got into reading like a year ago. Again, it used to be something I was huge into when I was like younger, then didn't read for like a million years. And that has honestly been huge for me. And like finding books where it really is like such a little gift to have even like 5 to 10 minutes to just
Yeah.
dive into this other world, and then you get lost in it and then go back to your day. But
Yeah.
I think, I started adding that up and I was like, oh, I do like when I take that little bit of time for myself, I end up probably gathering damn near 2 hours of time throughout the day that's
Yeah.
just for me to focus on something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that being able to learn how to relax and to take this back to exercise and stuff like this, if I'm working with somebody who's trying to do like a big long race for like the first time, one of the methods that you can try and do with stuff is you plan in recovery. So you say like, okay, well, you're going to run for 9 minutes and then you're going to walk for 1 minute for the entire half marathon. And we're going to start it with mile one. So even if you don't think you need that 1 minute recovery, you're going to do it. And the idea is you can build in recovery throughout that taxing event, which allows you to continue to go throughout the day and not be as beat up towards the end. And so you might be able to maintain a faster pace than if you just tried to jog the whole thing, because you might go down versus this will stay nice and steady throughout the
Yeah.
whole thing. That's exactly how I started looking at my day, with trying to be like, no, instead of just trying to find something else to do or find some other way to fill it, if I have a moment to just relax or to do something that's going to make my day better, then I'm sure as hell going to take it, because the more of those you add up, like then it doesn't feel like your day is crushing you. It doesn't feel like you're playing catch up. But I mean, going back to that, like, with planning and everything and the consistency piece, that's because my days are pretty freaking consistent. Like even with our crazy cheer schedule, the hours, the work hours during the week are pretty stinking consistent and nothing really changes outside of that. And so I've just had to take ownership over it and be like, okay, well, and during these hours, these are the things that I want to get done, or it's going to eat me alive. And then you just have to take the responsibility for execution.
Right. There's, and we can talk about this in another podcast, but I tell my clients to give it 5 minutes with everything. So whenever they're like, I really want to read that book, I'm like, just give it 5 minutes, see what happens. If you don't give it 5 minutes, like, then you're never going to know. So the second you start to think about like, I should probably go outside and get some sunshine, but that's when you pause and you say, nope, 5 minute rule. Just give it 5 minutes because you don't know where that could lead to. So everything that you are like, I should, or this is what I want to do, or I don't have time for this, give it, like, you got 5 minutes. You can give it 5 minutes to do that. And then you can go back to whatever busyness you want to do, but at least give it 5 minutes.
Yeah. And we totally have it.
We do.
Like we do, but it's so easy to be like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I think just ownership over like, how much do you really want the change that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And lately, it just, I don't know if it's about, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but like for me, all of the longevity stuff and just trying to be as active as possible, strong for as long as possible, that kind of stuff is working really well as like a motivator lately.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
just every day be like, I can go do that because I do have the time. And also I should just celebrate the fact that I can. And like, it should be done because one day I might not be able to.
Yeah. I love that. I think about that too. When I went through I have health anxiety actually, it's much better now, but,
Good.
I was so much in my uncontrollables.
Good water bottle. Every time I drink, it's all over me.
It is.
It's just
I
under
love
the
it.
camera.
But leaning into like your controllables more with those things too, like we actually have a lot of stuff that we can control. And if people are like, but my life is too busy, well, that's when you need to audit some shit. And you need to look at things like, is it too busy, or do you create the environment to make it feel as though it's too busy? Because you can shut off a lot of things and you don't need to give energy to probably a lot of the stuff that you're giving energy to. And then when you start to realize that, and you're right, take ownership of it, because it's okay. Everyone goes through that. Like everyone needs to like have a reality check, and that's okay. That means that you're about to grow and evolve. Like, good job. So don't be afraid to do that to yourself and check yourself with that. And then you open up a lot more opportunity for pretty cool things in life. So yeah, that ownership. We should do a whole other, we did ownership. Have we done ownership?
Have you read Extreme Ownership by?
Love it. I would read it over and over again.
We listened to it on audiobook.
Yeah.
And it's not too long. I
No.
would say we listened to that and another audiobook on our way to like Florida.
Yeah.
I think we listened to Jocko and we listened to Matthew McConaughey's
Oh, the
autobiography. Green.
lies. What is it like?
No, it's called like Green Shoes, Green Street, something like
Oh,
that.
no. Green lights.
Yes.
Yes.
Also, that
Great
right,
book.
okay, yes. So that whole concept of
Yeah.
green lights is another thing. And, I completely got myself lost there thinking about, with Jocko, extreme ownership. It really is another skill. It's leveling up with stuff, right?
Yeah.
To be able to take that stuff on. And then like I'm always talking about how, use your workout to be the most taxing and most challenging part of your day on purpose.
Yeah.
That way you've taken control of that. and
Yeah.
make it so that the rest of the day, nothing is going to get to you because of
Yeah.
what you did during your workout. I had a half marathon long run right before our call. And so, and doing stuff like that, like it makes me feel good the rest of my
Yeah.
day. I just
Yeah.
casually run a half marathon on a work day and then go about business the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And like, see, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but having it be something. So say we're talking about the mundane. I had a client who I gave her running for the week, her cardio. We're working towards like a race, and it's been super cold, and there was a 6 mile run, and she was like, I would have to do that on the tread, and I've never, like, I can't be on the treadmill for that long. And I was like, why does it turn off? And she was like, no, I just can't be on it that long. And I was like, guess what your homework is this week? Like, you're gonna learn how to just do that. Because like
Yeah.
no excuse there. What do you mean? You can watch TV, you can listen to music, you can read a book, you can do whatever the fuck you want while you're on a treadmill. Like,
Yeah.
so but yeah, people talk about like a treadmill minute is so hard or it's so boring or whatever. Find a way to make it work. So the last thing that we're going to do is not hit our program because we don't like the way that our accessibility is working that week.
Yeah.
Like, that
Yeah.
is not an option for why we don't get shit
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And so we can use that as an opportunity to be like, okay, well, I did that long run and I survived with no music. And
Mhm.
so normally I would avoid the DMV, but it is on the way home and I can just fucking go. And I know I forgot my book, but I'm just going to do it anyways. And
Yeah.
you start to like build in the, like, yeah, it's hard. It's a little bit hard, but I'm a person who does hard things. And
Yeah.
it's just like the tiny hard things and you add them up until you are just the person who can't be shaken by that shit because you are just a tough badass who kicks her own ass every day.
I love that. There's so much power in that. And also, if your excuse, if like you took a truth serum every time, like you had to give an excuse and like it sounds absolutely ridiculous after you say it, you should probably check that.
I love that. So I love the truth serum way of thinking of it. I think very Klingon because I'm a giant Star Trek dork. And I love the Klingon people because they're very like honor driven. And so you just have to do the right thing and the honorable thing and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so I'll, hold myself to that standard with like internal conversations. And if I'm just giving myself bullshit and it's like, okay, the truth serum, think about that. What is really happening here? Then
Yeah.
to acknowledge your bullshit and call yourself on it.
I love acknowledgement of bullshit. I think I call all my clients out on it in like very funny ways though. but then they're like, oh shit. Like I can't get too much past her. I'm like, yeah, because like I I get it. Like our brains want the easy way all the time. And guess what? That's not going to work out very well. Like if you can't be honest with yourself and truthful with yourself, and it's probably that's like a horrible relationship to begin with. If like you're in a relationship with yourself and all you do is like lie to yourself or manipulate the fuck out of yourself, it's probably not a good relationship. You should probably be in an honest relationship with yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's probably, I was going to say, if you have to have like a relationship built on manipulation with yourself, that's like a whole new level.
Whole another level.
However,
If
I
you manipulated it in like a no, your true higher self, not like
I think it's
your
probably healthier to have manipulation in my relationship with Christina than it is for like my relationship with Vic, right? Because I think
mm,
a lot of the stuff that we do try to say, like do this with yourself, is a little bit of manipulation, right? I mean, there's
well for
manipulation
your higher self. Like I would say if you have a good relationship, like a if you have a manipulating or if you need to have manipulating conversations, right? Like you can manipulate the conversation with yourself because your future self will thank you, then that's something different than like manipulating the conversation to keep you stuck or to keep you stagnant in something that's not serving your higher self.
Yeah. So with that, it makes me think of like the difference between like excuses and legitimate reasons, where like a reason is like unshakable and an excuse is probably going to be a little bit easier with something like that. But oh, I had something else before that came to mind that it made me think of, but now apparently today my thoughts are just they're just doing whatever they want.
Well, we kind of said that this would happen. That we're gonna start talking. It's just gonna be like,
Well, I was excited about this one because I knew it would come easily. But I
yeah,
do think in those kinds of situations, because my brain will go faster than my mouth, that then not everything makes it out or it gets jumbled in my head. And then I'm like, oh, I have
yeah. I
no idea what
mean,
that point was.
we came up with so many different topics, and I think like it would be awesome for our listeners to also, if there was something within this conversation that they were like, ooh, could you touch on that a little bit more? Um, and build like a conversation around it, because we hit on like extreme ownership. Um, we hit on talking to our younger self. Yeah.
Well, now I kind of want to listen to Extreme Ownership again.
Great, great book. And even following just Jocko, he also has, if there are parents listening, which I'm assuming there are,
Oh,
The Diary of the Wimpy Kid.
so not Diary of a Wimpy Kid. That's an actual series. That's different.
Oh, no, 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 you're right. What is the book?
Warrior Kid.
Warrior Kid.
Is that what
Yeah.
it is? Let me Google
Yes.
really fast. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's like the Way of the Warrior Kid.
Way of the Warrior Kid. Yep.
Um,
Way of the Warrior Kid.
but
Also coming out with a movie is coming out from it.
right. Yes, I heard about that. Oh, there's so many of them now. So
Great, great book. Ravenna has read that book.
yeah, we got it for Riker. I don't know if Cora has read it yet. You know what we've learned now with 4 kids so far. How old is Ravenna's your oldest, right?
Yeah, 8 and 5.
Okay, so fourth grade, I think so far is our least favorite
Mm,
of kids for like similar reasons, where I think it's a more difficult grade interpersonal relationship wise
yeah,
with friend circles,
yeah,
actual bullying, and then
yeah,
bullying, like just kids being shitheads,
yeah.
and stuff like that. But it was hard for Riker and Cora for completely different reasons, and they're very different kids for the same reasons, and they're very different. And so I should actually have her read that one. I forgot we had it. We have so many books that I actually like, I want to get rid of a lot of them in order
Mm,
to get the kids to read more. Because I think because we literally have so many that we've just accumulated over the years. Because we have ones from when I was a kid, and then my mom sent
yeah.
me, I'm the oldest of 4, so she sent me a vast majority of the books that she had from when we were kids.
Mhm.
And then Vic had somebody at his work who one day just brought in like 3 boxes because they were moving and
Oh,
teenagers. So he was like, here's books. And I'm like, it's too many books.
they're awesome. Yeah, we
I
could
gotta go
probably,
with that one.
that's a good book. But Jocko is, I mean, if anybody wants to be like impressed on many different levels. Also, following, he just did a really, if people are interested, he did a really, really good podcast with his daughter. And his daughter does taekwondo, no, jujitsu. And she just was on his podcast and talked about like her struggles with like fitness
Yeah.
and like dialogues. It's a very fitness and health slash parenting, and how to navigate, how to communicate with your daughters, I guess, and kids in general about health and fitness.
Yeah.
And Jocko was put in his place many times, which I thought was great.
Interesting. Well, my long runs are getting like officially annoyingly long. So I'll have to start getting more podcasts to listen to.
Yeah.
Because especially some of those really long ones will carry me for ever. So
And Jocko's are like 2.5 to 3 hours.
right. I love that because those are the ones where I'll super zone out on the conversation and like
Yeah.
not pay attention to my surroundings at all. Yeah, so I'll have to dive into that. So, all right, guys. Well, like Danica said, if there's anything that stuck out or anything that we need to dive deeper into, let us know. And oh my gosh, by the time this episode releases, there's only 28 days in February this year, right? That was
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
It's a leap year. I feel like it happened recently, right? Or am I crazy?
Yeah, no, it did.
Okay. It'll be the 27th. That's great. I can't believe February, like January was at least 600 years long. And February, blink of an eye. And you know, it's like people will start posting that stuff in January where they'll be like, this is the longest month ever, like halfway through the month. And at that point, I'm like, what's your problem? I love January. It's a fresh start. And then give it like 72 hours. And then I'm like, what?
January never stops.
Pretty sure I was 25 when this month started. And like, what happened?
It's too funny.
We still here. And now, so we go on our big cheer competition in a week, like the biggest one of the year. And then from then it's just like boom, 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 boom. And so the way I look at it is like it's mid-February, but actually it's like 10 minutes from April. Like I'm gonna look up and all of a sudden it's gonna be summer. And for that, I'm very excited. I'm officially 1 month out from Disney. And then that trip is 1 month out from another Disney trip. And so
That's
I've got all
awesome.
sorts of stuff. I'm living my life 30 days at a time right now. So here we go. All right, guys. Welcome to Girl Talk, or goodbye from Girl Talk. And
Goodbye from Girl Talk.
indeed. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.